Welcome everybody. My name is Wendy Peart. I am the curator director of the Dunlop Art Gallery. So welcome here today to the Regina Public Library Dunlop Art Gallery to this group exhibition of Connective Tissue, the name of the exhibition. It is an exhibition that considers the interstitial bonds between family members. Welcome here. I would like to acknowledge that the land that which we gather on is Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Nahiwak, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Thanks for coming here on this gorgeous day. I think it's the best day so far in Regina since last year. And also for joining us during the FIFA where Canadians are playing. So thank you for all for coming. I'm extremely gracious that we have all 5 artists of the exhibition here in Regina to speak with us, to celebrate with us. I don't think we've ever in my time have had the opportunity to do that. So this is great. So I also just want to acknowledge that the room here is formerly the Prairie History Room. The Regina Public Library has undergone some changes in consultation with the community as well as staff members, as well as in regards to on the path of reconciliation and change, where we've moved our materials out of this room and into the library proper, with also an intention to grow that collection to represent and include the Indigenous people's histories and their contemporary context. This collection is going to have a new name that will be announced at the end of the summer, and it'll also have a new visual brand to go along with it. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that this room also has some gorgeous artwork here made by Tori Ironstar, who is a local Indigenous artist. And Regina Public Library has also recently acquired one of their original paintings, which will be in this room at some point soon. I would like to thank all the people at Dunlop Art Gallery that made this exhibition possible, including Sarah Pittman, Eric Hill, who's at the back there, who's no longer with Dunlop, but is helping us today. Stacy Fayant, Aisha Mosen, Alexander Rondeau, Tiana Delorme, Julie Thompson, Margaret Basai, Yuji Sang, John David, Mackenzie Vida, and Amber Phelps Bonderoff. I would like to thank our key funders, Canada Council for the Arts, Sask Arts, Sask Lottery, Sask Culture, and the Department of Canadian Heritage. Okay, now on to the good stuff. Today I'm going to just read the bios of all 5 artists, and then we'll start with the questions. So Sarah Cummings-Truszkowski is on the far end there, is a contemporary exhibiting artist living in Regina, Saskatchewan. She works as an artist, art teacher, community volunteer, and mother to three teenagers. She is also a Regina Public School Board trustee. And Sarah has a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Queen's University and has received 2 independent arts grants from Sask Arts. And she teaches or has taught art classes at the Regina Public Library. Thank you for doing that. At the Art Gallery Regina, as well as led outdoor art experiences for those experiencing homelessness. Sarah also volunteers for the Cathedral Village Arts Festival, and her work focuses on complicating societal understandings of motherhood, feminism, personal agency, time, love, the environment, social issues, and the cultural histories of women. I'll just go by how we're sitting here. So Angeline Teoh Simon is a multidisciplinary artist based in Lethbridge, Alberta, Treaty 7 territory. She graduated from the University of Lethbridge in 2018 with a BFA in Art Studio. As a second-generation biracial Canadian, her practices explore familial narratives and the dynamics within contrasting cultures. Working with collage and ceramics, Simon's practice investigates intergenerational memory, diaspora, stemming from her experience spending summers with her maternal family in Malaysia. Her work has been exhibited at galleries and institutions, including the Art Gallery of Alberta, Esker Foundation, University of Lethbridge, Helen Christo Gallery, Harcourt House Artist Run Center, Contemporary Calgary, Southern Art Gallery of Evergreen, and Platform C Center for Photographic Arts in Winnipeg. Next to her is local artist Melanie Monique Rose. Melanie is a Métis Ukrainian visual artist from Regina, Treaty 4 territory, a citizen of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and a member and board member of Sakayawak Artist Collective. Her work explores kinship between land, people, and community using plants to share ancestral knowledge and imagine colonial futures through Métis worldviews. She studied fiber arts at Kootenay School of Arts and has exhibited widely, including her solo show at Le Monde des Fleurs and Story Objects, Métis Art and Relation. Her natural dye brought her to the National Gallery of Canada and CWAIA fashion shows. She has received numerous honors, including Excellence in Textiles, the CBC Future 40, and the 2025 Regina YWCA Women of Distinction. Next to her is Zun Lee. Dr. Zun Lee is an award-winning visual storyteller, physician, and educator based between Canada and the United States. Born in Germany and having lived in several major American cities, his work explores Black domestic life as a site of intimacy, belonging, and displacement. Working across photography, archival research, social practice, and writing, he challenges dominant representations and examines how identity and meaning shift as images circulate beyond their original contexts. Trained as a neuroscientist and former management consultant, Lee also investigates visual literacy, structural competency, and the ethics of representation in an increasingly networked and surveilled world. His work has been exhibited and taught widely across North America and Europe and is held in international collections. His honors include a Guggenheim Fellowship, Mellon Practitioner in Residence, a Knight Foundation grant, and Magnum Foundation Fellowship. Last but not least, Dominique Rey is a French-Canadian visual artist working across photography, film, and sculpture. Centering performance and the body, her practice explores identity, fragmentation, and experiences of disorientation and displacement. Her ongoing project, Motherground, examines the transformations of early motherhood and its emotional extremes. Rey's work has been exhibited internationally at major institutions, including the National Gallery of Canada, Remain Modern, the Museum of Contemporary Art Toronto, Plugin ICA, Galerie Lequem, and the Winnipeg Art Gallery. She has received numerous awards and grants and was longlisted for the Sobey Art Award in 2011. Rey holds MFAs from Bard College and Transart Institute Berlin and is a professor at the University of Manitoba. Okay. So, yay. Okay, so I'm just going to start with questions now. So can you each share with us what fuels the drive for making the work that you have made, and it's in the gallery? Do you have specific goals you want to achieve? And I'm not sure how you guys want to do this, if we want to go down the line or just chime in.
Okay, I'll jump in. And I think this is good sound, right? Okay, awesome. Yeah, what drives the work? Well, I think from an early point, it really has been an interest in women's stories and experiences, working with collectives of women, mostly on the edge of society, to my own personal experiences, and more recently becoming a mother has become a really phenomenal subject for making art as an artist, because I've just felt my own life expand in all ways possible as far as growth and expansion and all the lessons of every micro moment with my children and becoming a parent, from extremes of ecstasy to agony. So I try to convey that in the work, but not so much as a portrait or self-portrait, really using the body and performance, constructed and also very much improvised for the camera. often using props and materials and masking our identities so that, we become more forms, figurative forms that we can project ourselves into and feel that movement and physical connection, and hopefully that resonates with the audience.
I think I want to echo what you said in terms of the work being driven by lived experience, but also an observation and detached relationship with that lived experience. I think the idea of lived experience is something that we all share in terms of as something that fuels our creativity, but the work itself is, and it's echoing what you said, it's not necessarily autobiographical, it's more autoethnographic, where I'm using that lived experience to examine larger issues that I observe, but that I'm not necessarily part of. So for me, it's interesting having lived in different countries and actually not being from this country, kind of arriving and observing how things are the same, but also different, and kind of not trying to resolve that dissonance, but more so figuring out where these things kind of coexist. There's sort of what I'm observing a lot, and having no formal arts training, I'm observing there's this rush to resolve something rather than to sit with something. And so for me, it's more about sitting with discomfort, sitting with multiplicities, and sitting with the things that seem irreconcilable, and kind of figuring out what happens if we kind of just stay in that in between and let that just sit with us, right? And so specifically issues that we're all kind of exploring as artists together, like family dynamics, identity, belonging, and how that's constituted, but also how that's complicated. For me, you cannot have, love and belonging and kinship without the complication. And so for me, like, it's always important to kind of explore all these things together.
I think what drives the work for me a lot is curiosity. I have a land-based practice, and oftentimes it's more about the process than the product. And oftentimes I believe I live here in Regina, and so when I get to go out into the country or be in relationship with the land, I find that for myself as it fills me up so much. It's almost like an act of healing. As soon as I get out there, I'm like, and bringing my daughter, who is 8, into my practice, and she's been with me ever since she's been born. I think that that's also, a part of that. I'm not necessarily being like, okay, we're going out here to be healed, but no, it's, but finding a place that I can take you to, I can show you that. And then perhaps, with that curiosity, perhaps this land is also going to teach you something, or to do something special, like seeing a bluebird and deciding how that's going to feel you. So, I think for me, what drives me a lot is that curiosity, and in that, finding that process. So that's really an exciting thing about my work that I think continues to fuel me, because if I'm constantly curious and going almost get myself into a childlike way of wonder, I can always continue to find new things.
For my work, I think what drives it a lot is the distance between like myself and relatives. Growing up in Canada, it's kind of just been like me, my mom, and my dad. So going back to Malaysia to see my mom's side of the family has always been really like nourishing. Just being able to, just reconnect, being there, and like the food. I think that's a main thing that I think about too, is how food connects us. And I think a lot of people from all different backgrounds can relate to that. Often when I go and visit, instead of being asked like, how are you doing? It's going to be like, Jet Ba Boy, which is in Hokkien, like, have you eaten yet? And that's like a big form of care. So I think in my work, I'm thinking about those things and kind of trying to merge like past, present, kind of like merging together the distance, using like also old family photographs, photographs that I take when I visit, and also images of like where I currently live, and kind of creating this like imaginative world where it all can kind of like combine together. And then in ceramic food, yeah, I'm just thinking a lot about the love and care and traditions surrounding food, and how recreating these pieces, I can kind of continue to like remember different types of things that I will be more familiar with overseas, but not so much over here. Yeah.
Thanks. So I can relate to a lot of the things that all of you have said. My work is about a deep connection to the women in my family, to my mother, to my grandmother, and to my children too. It's also about food, and the memory and the traditions that happens in families. And wanting to sort of hold on to it. It's complicated, this care and this love between family. I have 3 teenagers, and 0 of them are here right now. So, I make this work sort of for them, wanting to share the specialness of what my mother, my ancestors have passed on to me, and yet they have lives to live and things to do. And so, it's also for me to remember and to sort of cherish special times, special memories, special love between people.
Okay, thanks for that. Maybe this time we'll go back that way. Sarah, you're up. You all refer directly to specific people in your work as a core part of your subject matter. So can you tell me how those people feel about you centering them in your work, and tell me about those relationships?
So I guess my love of baking started when I was really young, and I would bake with my grandmother. She loved baking and would make all kinds of special things to have with tea, and to have at Christmas, and to have at special holidays. And she's been dead for 20 years, so she doesn't have a clue about any of this. My mother is getting older and is interested that I make this art about things that are special to her too, but she also doesn't understand why. And so there's she thinks I should be making more sellable art, or more, she just has ideas about why are you doing this? And my children, they are more interested in it. They're teenagers, but they like that I make things, and then it was because it was from one of their celebrations. Like it might have been someone's birthday cake, or someone's, a special thing that they love to eat at a holiday. And they like that. But they're also teenagers and also don't care.
Okay, so let me think here. With the ceramic food that I've been making, I think that it started from when I was a child, like when I go to the markets with my aunties and stuff like that in Malaysia. It's just kind of like a tradition we always do, like Sunday morning markets, super early. No one else is up. It's just me and my Auntie Jenny leaving the house at like 6, 7 in the morning, and like walking around, and I'm always taking photos and just like learning about new fruits and vegetables. And I was always so excited about that. So yeah, I think majority of my family like have responded well to my art, but I think talking about contemporary art is sometimes a tricky thing, that it's not necessarily like the easiest to dig into those things. But that has allowed for me to open up conversations, especially when I am collecting old family photographs. Now, when I'm doing that, we often are bringing up old stories of like, oh, this is where grandpa was living at so-and-so time, or this is the house that my mom grew up in, something like that. So I think making the art, the process of it has allowed for a lot more sharing of like these histories, which I find very important. But in terms of like the art itself, I feel like just not a lot of conversation, but that's okay too. Yeah, I feel like sometimes maybe some of my family members are like, why are you doing this also? But I don't think there's been any like, negative conversations or anything like that. One of my cousins in Malaysia actually asked for a collage. So I was pretty excited. I was like, oh, yay, you like what I'm doing.
One time when I was I was looking for color and the ditches. I actually find myself oftentimes finding plants in ditches. And I came across goldenrod, and I had this really profound experience where I felt almost like through the plant, I was reaching back and reaching to my great grandmother Rose, who I had never met before. And she was a medicine woman and had relationships with plants. And it just felt like this goldenrod was like a breadcrumb to help me to connect with my grandmother. And so that's been really special. And I think that's, centering my ancestors in the land in that way. And now when I'm oftentimes with my daughter, I just feel that circle there of that sharing of knowledge. And it was, it's too bad I didn't get to get that from my grandma, but she was quite a bit older than me. I didn't get a chance to meet her, but I love how I feel that those, that I'm sharing this work that's about her and about the land. And now I'm sharing that through my daughter. And so my daughter Meadow, to her, working with me is like playing. Like she's not interested in coming here and sitting here and hearing me or going to the art opening, but she came here to help install. And she loved doing that part with me. You'll see there's a piece with, I call it little bundles of tiny bundles of love. And we made that last summer at the Goodwin House at Sask Landing. And together we picked sage, and we took pieces of keffiyeh scarf that were leftovers from me making a keffiyeh ribbon skirt, and we together wrapped these little bundles together. So that was this act of care, act of connection, and for me, a ritual of just my love and solidarity with the Indigenous people of Palestine, but all the children in particular. And so does my daughter understand exactly the gravity of that ritual of care that I'm talking about, these little babies that have been killed? No, she doesn't. And I do talk to her very honestly about things. I'm a truth teller with her, but I'm also aware of her age. And so I think when we create together, I don't think she's really, her opinion is, she's just always been there since the beginning. I haven't wanted to, as my main thing is I'm an artist, so I haven't wanted to be like, you have to go here and I do this now. I'll be honest, do I always want her in the studio with me? There has been times where it's like, okay, I need to do this. But I have really enjoyed having her as a part of my practice. And I love when she came here to install, how she feels like she's a part of it. There's a scarf there that she picked flowers with me that she eco-printed, and she just feels really involved in it. But I don't think she's actually thinking too much of, like, she doesn't care if she's in an art show or whatever. I joke to her, like, we need to get you a CV, but she doesn't even know what I'm talking about. But she does like to spend time with her mom and play with her mom and walk around with her mom. And I think it's fun that she also is learning names of plants so she can show her friends the pineapple weed and tell them that they can make tea with it. So yeah, I'm wondering how she'll feel when she becomes a teenager and if she's still going to want to play with me in that way or walk with me. So I'm hoping that she does.
Thank you. I think I resonate with all of these answers in some way, but specific to the question, sorry. I think I don't choose my collaborators. I think my collaborators choose me, kind of like how we form relationships or friendships. Because my practice isn't really about making objects. It's more about the conviviality of being with somebody in a space. So literally my work, and listening to all of the answers, my work is actually not making photos. It's just hanging out with people and sitting around the kitchen table and sharing stories. That's really the work, and just spending time with people. The pictures often just happen as a byproduct of that time that I spent with people. And I think 90% of the time I end up not even taking photos. It's just really just hanging out and forming relationships. And so just like with everyone in this room, I think we form relationships with people who we gravitate towards based on certain criteria, but sometimes even serendipitously. But it's always a give and take, right? Just with people that we date or chosen family. So it's not necessarily something that I choose, but if people choose me to be part of their circle or their community or their friendship circle or whatever, let's just say they have very strong opinions about the work that I make, to the point where, the work that does happen as a result of that conviviality is then oftentimes also the result of them being the makers, the curators, the editors. So the work that you see on the walls in any given space is also based on the decisions that these people made, to not only to be seen, but also the choices that were made between, why not this image, why this one? And so I let them very specifically tell me, what resonates with them. And for me, that's important to have them sort of even invisibly in a certain space where I feel like oftentimes we leave the selection to curators. I feel it's equally important to have them at the table as people who are not just depicted, but also who have a certain sense of what it means to be aestheticized in spaces that are not necessarily welcoming. So, people have a very keen sense of what it means to have the picture taken, and then what happens to that picture when it's no longer in their homes. And so it goes beyond the question of like, what does it mean for me to have my picture in a gallery and have strangers looking at my picture? So it's not just about embarrassment or looking good. It's also what is the function of that photograph, and what does that tell others who are not part of my community about my world? And so it's really the question of oftentimes the question that gets put back into my lap is, what if I was the one that's being photographed? And my honest answer is I hate being photographed myself. Meaning, and I often get reminded, and again, it's more an act of care and love rather than, in photography, we talk about the sitter and the taker. But it's when you're all sitting around the kitchen table and just hanging out and making conversation, it's a different conversation than just saying, hey, let me make a photograph of you, right? And so as your friend, as somebody that sits at the kitchen table and we break bread and we probably cook together and we share all this other time together, how would I want you to be seen? How would you want me to be part of that circle, right? And so the relationship or the responsibility doesn't just end up with me taking a picture and having a consent form signed, but it's, having to go back next week to the same kitchen table and say, hey, are you okay with what just happened? And being accountable to that group of people beyond just the work that's hanging at the gallery. So that's how I kind of look at that relationship.
I was just curious if my daughter or son would be interested in commenting on how they feel about being centered in the work and what does it feel for them? Because I can't speak for them. Obviously, I have opinions and thoughts about it, but I just wanted to put out the invitation without putting too much pressure. Do you want to share anything, Maddie? Do you want to come sit with me for a sec, or August? No? Maddie, okay. So, yeah, what does it feel like to be part of the work, to make the work together? What are some of your feelings around, this project we've been working on for many years?
I think I'm just really proud, and I really enjoy making it. I find it it really inspires me. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Maddie. We do make dramatic art together, so that is fitting. And thank you for your courage to share your thoughts. And I know August has some as well, so we're just going to maybe save that for later. But certainly I've worked with groups of women and individuals, and ethics of representation and collaboration have been a topic I've considered throughout my practice, and have learned so much and evolved in ways of working and thinking of reciprocity. Is a volume okay? Yeah. Reciprocity and working in good ways, because for one thing, I feel so blessed by all the folks who have been my muse and who have collaborated with me throughout my practice. And now in this project, Mother Ground, that is like an 8-year-long project that was created with my children and with other parents and their children. It's, talking about being in the most intimate environment and seeing what comes out of that work and collaboration. Just to go back to, thinking about process and considering throughout the making of this work, there have been all kinds of feelings and thoughts and concerns about how are my kids going to feel about this work in 1 year, in 5 years, in 15 years. And, I don't have a crystal ball, but in the moment, really thinking about what my intentions are and how am I honoring them and doing the best that I can do to create work in collaboration with them that we can all feel good about. That's all I have is that moment, and that's what I've tried to honor.
Thank you. You all have given us some thoughts, or you've all given us some really good points of view and perspectives on how you approach that, because I know it's not always easy. And it's one thing to get out there and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing, that's very internal, but to go out there and also sort of have a voice for another person and to stand for that. So that's also a really brave and courageous act. And yeah, just like to acknowledge that. Another thing that's kind of common for the most of you, some bit more obviously than others, but photography or lens-based practice or process is a medium that is common in all of your work. And can you please tell me about how this process, why you do that in a really unfancy way?
Yeah, I think, photography has been instrumental to my practice for a long time and is part of all these modes of translation that really start with spirit and inspiration and, how I would say early on, going back to the Mother Ground project, thinking, yes, motherhood would be a really interesting subject, but, I think there might be a lot of bias out there that might not be so interested. And then on the other side, what is my entry point into this topic that inspires me and excites me about this work? And when that moment was discovered was actually when my partner Lancelot was just by chance in the everyday language of movement between parent and child documented my daughter and I, who was at the time 1.5 years and the way we were lit in this city, we were backlit, we became these silhouetted forms. And this one hybrid body that was two, that was one, and just the confusion of those bodies said so much about the complexity of that relationship and the ever-evolving dynamics of that relationship. And for me, that was the light bulb moment. That was, they were just phone stills. The camera comes in as a really instrumental tool for documenting these performances that, I set up the stage. I think of costumes and concept and props and environment and lighting and all of these things. And then the actors come along and they come with their pure talent, and they're, you were talking about children are playing. What is art? It's about play. And, they remind me of that. So I follow their lead. They're the directors. And every time is a mystery what will come out of it. And then through photography and other mediums, collage, sculpture, film, I continue to synthesize, transform, translate this material, until it becomes the thing that feels right to me.
Yeah, why photography? I think for me, it's actually the most unnatural medium of working. I came from an outside field, so I never had formal arts training, and I certainly didn't have formal photography training. So everything is kind of self-taught. But beyond that, my engagement in the arts was always kind of embodied. So I used to be a dancer, I used to be a singer, and so I'm much more comfortable actually expressing myself, like, in an embodied way in a space. And so pictures for me always kind of disconnected me from that experience. So I actually was never a fan of photography, to be honest. And for me, the switch occurred when I realized I can use the camera to kind of overcome some of my natural introversion or shyness. I love being in a space, meaning I love to be present in a space with my body, and the camera gives me the ability to do that more consciously in a space with other people. As I mentioned, my practice is more about hanging out and forming friendships. And so sometimes, especially meeting strangers, I have no natural tendency to meet strangers. So, but having a camera and a project deadline in mind kind of gives me the motivation to say, hey, I need to actually kind of, muster the energy to kind of, create moments with other people and form relationships with other people. And so it gives me the permission to myself to kind of say, hey, it's okay to, show up in a space with people that you otherwise probably would have not entered. And so for me, the camera is more so a permission to embody myself in a practice the same way I would have done as a dancer or as a singer. And so I look at it more as that way. So I the way I photograph, it's more like a dance. Actually, I go closer, I go back, I kind of just move around the room. And if you ever saw me in action, people are like, oh my goodness, like you need to just sit down. Like, but it's kind of like what happens when you're, in a room with kids or with other families, you move around and and so this is the same way I photograph. I kind of just move around, and again, the pictures just happen as part of, my natural tendency to just hang out in a space. So, given I'm too old to dance now, it's kind of the camera is the next best thing for me to kind of be able to do those things that I used to be able to do as a dancer. So that's basically, in a nutshell, how I look at photography.
I was on the way here. I was out at Pasco Lake and I was thinking about this question. And I think really lens-based and photography, I'd always taken images, but I never thought of it as part of my practice for a really long time. And in 2020, I made this piece. I called it Summer Sleeping. And so I work a lot in textiles, process. And this piece was a capot, which was hand-stitched blanket. It's a particular style of coat that was popular in the fur trade era. Lots of Métis folks had made them. And there's a lot of story and meaning behind this. And I was thinking about, I wanted to document it. I wanted to send an image of it to somebody or gallery or something. And I kept on trying to take these pictures and they just looked terrible to me. It just didn't have any life. It didn't have the story in it. And so I was like, you know what? I need to take this piece out onto the land. And in a lot of my lens-based work, I'm in it, or my daughter. So it's a collaboration with other folks. Like, I set the scene for the story and work with other people. There is some work where I am behind the camera as well, but it was almost like an accident. And actually this piece, if you're curious after, is in the Vic Park, which is just behind us here on, it's a garage building and it's on the garage door. So it's this big mural. But when I took the piece, I put on this capot and I put it on the land, and I started telling that story with my body and wearing this piece that I made, something clicked for me. I was like, oh, that's what it is. That's what I need here. And so it really opened up a lot of my storytelling, because some of these pieces that I make, I wanted to say so much more about them. And so, yes, there's this cloth, but how sometimes having this cloth actually out on the land, it just made more sense about what the story was. So it kind of happened unintentionally, but now I find that it's a really vital part of my storytelling. And it's evolved to working with other people, such as Kat Haynes. We have Kat's here today. And we have a collective called Cattail Collective. And, there was this story I wanted to tell. And so it was really nice, because I was like, no, I need, in this case, Kat works with analog film and Kat does eco-developing, and it all made so much sense to try to tell this story. So it's just kind of continued to evolve in my storytelling using that. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily intentional, but now I feel like all those parts are very integral and woven together.
I think photography has been pretty central to my art practice, because it all started with like finding and collecting these old family photographs that I cherish so much. They're actually all kept in a fireproof safe too. That's how much I value them. And I think, again, it comes down to the distance and just wanting to feel closer to family, even though they're so far away. So yeah, I only got to meet my grandparents a few times growing up. My grandpa passed away when I was in high school. So all I have left are these old photographs. And I don't know, in a way, when I make these digital collages, I'm kind of spending time with him or with my grandma, when I'm cutting out parts and putting in new pieces. And I don't know, in a way, just trying to reinsert some life into these old black and white photographs from, I don't know, the 50s or 60s, something like that. And I want to continue remembering. I want, if I have a child in the future, I want them to be able to remember their great grandparents and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just kind of all about cherishing. And yeah.
Thanks. I guess photography comes into play for my work through the process, because part of my art is the baking. I do a lot of baking for holidays, for special events, for my kids, for their classes, for a whole variety of things. But then once I've baked the thing, I say, stop, can I take a picture? Or I slice a piece and go over to the kitchen counter where the window is so the light is good. And so, the camera is important in that it sets up what the painting is going to become. And I base my paintings off of the photographs, but the photographs have to be a part of sort of the celebration or the event that is happening for the baking to take place. And yeah, so it is central, even though it's not central at the same time.
Thanks, Sarah. I had to actually confirm that with her when I was making up this question. I'm like, pretty sure she photographs them, but I just want to see if she wants to speak to that at all. But yeah, I'm not. I think maybe what we'll do, I don't know if we'll have time for another question, because I want to leave time for any questions in the audience. So maybe we'll just give an opportunity for those in the audience if you have any questions, and if not, I can go with more questions. Or yes, Kat, and maybe I can just hand you the microphone. Or yeah, sure.
Some of you have talked about different relationships that have influenced your work, and this is all very relational work. I was wondering if people wanted to talk about who their relational role models are. What relationships do you look up to and aspire to model? Big question.
Take a stab. Do you mean in terms of my practice, or?
Yeah.
That's a tough one again, because I had to kind of get my way into the art world, like by way of teaching myself. But I think a lot of social practice artists come to mind. But specifically, I find a lot of my my thinking partners in cultural studies or philosophy. So I work a lot with poets and mostly with humanities scholars who unpack questions that we all talked about today: kinship, belonging, family, but not necessarily in an aestheticized sense, but more so from, the point of, how does it construct our sense of self? And so for me, I'm trying to unpack more so relationship as, it's sort of a double-edged sword, relationship that can build and affirm, but also relationships that can hurt and negate. And so oftentimes that happens by way of the same person, right? And so just like, and I'm not sure if you agree or not, but the people that are often the most difficult to collaborate with are your family and friends. So, right? And so they can be the most critical, but also when it works, it can be the most affirming type of collaboration, right? And so for me, I find, and given my background as a physician, it's also a kind of different permutation of kind of unpacking the patient-provider relationship, which is also a very vulnerable relationship where both sides have to kind of contribute a certain amount of vulnerability. So for me, it's also the question of relationality as vulnerability, not just on the part of the person that's being researched, but also on the part of the person that's making the work. So I firmly believe that, in order for the other person to be vulnerable, you also have to share a part of yourself. And so for me, it's kind of also therapeutic where, I'm forcing myself to access somebody else's work or somebody else's, relationality, and I have to earn that. Meaning, I cannot just make it for the sake of arts. I have to also say, I have to honor your relationality with me by saying, what am I bringing to the table? And so this is why it's very much about, not just about making work, but, how am I showing up as a friend, as not as the collaborator or a maker, but as a friend.
Nice question, Kat. I was reading this book. I'm sure lots of people, it's pretty popular, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I was pregnant at the time, and there's this part about strawberries and about giving strawberries and that whole relationality with the land and family. And I just remember, I was in the tent, I was camping, I'm in the tent alone, and I just started crying. I'm like, my mom gave me strawberries. and just it was just ridiculous crying in a way, but it made that connection with that sweetness of that relationship with both the land and what the land gives, and but also that active care of of how mothers are. And yeah, so yeah, I think any kind of caregiver, and the earth itself is our greatest caregiver. So
I was just going to add, I wasn't thinking of artists. And when I think of artists who inspire me, I'm probably thinking more of photographers or performance artists or in different disciplines than in, really focusing on relational practice. But the first person, that was in my mind was my maternal grandmother, who had 14 children. And, it's the classic pioneer tale in ways, where her mother was an immigrant, and they went through a lot of hardship. And my grandmother and all of her kids lived in poverty. And despite all of these harsh circumstances, their home was the meeting place for all the other neighborhood kids. And somehow she magically manifested food for everyone always. And so there was always a place for everyone there. So, I got to benefit from knowing her for my childhood. And I think she's my role model for what you're asking.
Can I go? Yeah. I was thinking of the women in my life too, and my grandmother and mother as really amazing role models for me. But everyone in my life I'm making this art about them, about our history, about our ancestry, about traditions. But there's also a lot of flaws with the women in my family, with the people in my family, with my role models. So it's complicated to say, like, who's the most important one, who's the most, the best role model for you. I have an idea in my head who it is, and at the same time, there's just no relationship with my children either is perfect. And so I love my mother. I love everything that she's given to me, but there's also a lot of tension and complications and difficulties too. So while my art is about like a celebration, it's complicated.
I would say, yeah, like mother, who's actually in the crowd right there. She's the one who always, like, ever since I think the first trip was when I was 7 years old, to like go back and just wanting to make sure that I had a relationship with that side of the family, even though they're so far away. And then my aunties, like, always, again, the whole market thing that I've talked about already, just and like meal preparation. So there's the, like, from start to finish, going out to the markets, buying the food, preparing the food, and then like eating together at the table. I think those are just, things I really cherish. And those would be the role models, is mostly the women in my life.
That was an awesome question. I think we've got us all thinking about those things. But are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, great. Do we want to pass the mic?
This has been an awesome experience hearing from all of you, and obviously a lot of depth to your work and thinking. And you've obviously all got a very clear lens and a distinct view that you work with. And we live in a time where it's easy to find lots of reasons for concern in the world. And I'm really curious about where you see optimism, what you're optimistic about in the world.
Oof, that's a really hard one, because there is so much struggle, so much war and devastation and inequity. And so the good things in the world do have to do with the little things in life, have to do with the people that are right beside you, the things that you can do and control right in front of you, the pieces of joy that you can bring. I think it has to do with people.
Yeah, I think I fully agree with that. The world is a hard place, and there's a lot of, really catastrophic things going on. But I think it's important that we uplift each other, like helping out our communities, being there for each other, and like, yeah, doing what you can with like the people around you. There's going to be so much that's like out of control, but yeah, if I can spark a bit of joy here and there with like my art, I think that means a lot. Yeah, leave it at that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a very angry, upset, and sad person sometimes, but I also, within saying that, I would say I'm an optimist and kind of keep on the sunny side. I have a community collaborative based part of my practice. And I really find that when I'm making art around a table with people from all kinds of different people. So an example is right now I'm working on this piece. It's a community blanket piece, and it's a collaboration with Regina Immigrant Women's Group. And there are not just women in the group, and there are people from all over the world. And I love the kindness of the sharing and getting to meet people that we can't even always understand each other's language. But there's that care around making and collaborating oftentimes is giving me that hope and that joy. And I would definitely say that. And then again, I also want to say the kids, because oftentimes stuff that's going on in their worlds right now, I don't think I wouldn't have had that opportunity to be that free. And that's really nice. I don't think that's always happening everywhere in the world, but I'm very happy that if my daughter is queer or trans, or she wants to be anything she wants, that I feel like she's safe to do that. So that also gives me hope. And then these kids aren't bullying each other about that. I think when I was a kid, I'd be like, oh, it's like, no, this is awesome. My kid doesn't even blink an eye. So I love that. So yeah, they're the kids a lot too.
Thank you. That's a profound question. Profound questions by the audience, period. I'd say something that's been articulated by all of us is kind of intentionality around care and compassion and just showing up for one another. So even just what gives me hope and optimism is this room, right? Like, meaning somebody had to give a damn to invite all of us to make this wonderful show, to convene us based on, some of the same ideas that push us to make our work. You showing up and, when you probably could do a million other things that are equally valuable, to be here in this room with us and to honor the invitation and just to kind of make time and the intentionality to kind of show up for one another. So that gives me hope. And, what reminds me of that is, right now in a world where, there's so much focus, not just on all the things that are terrible right now, but the way things are terrible also is very hard to stomach, right? So war, violence, inequity, all of these things, they're not just here, they're being monetized and commodified, and they're all accessed for somebody to profit off of, right? And so and in that sense, where does it leave us as makers, where we're only valuable if we make stuff to be sold or to be exhibited? So given that we're sort of part of that consumption of violence, if that makes sense, what gives me optimism is that somebody just calls, say, hey, how are you doing? Not, hey, what are you working on? Meaning somebody actually gives a damn, sorry, I almost cussed, to just check in and say hello and say, like, I haven't heard from you in a minute. Like, how are you doing? And not, are you making work, but just, how are you doing as a person? So that gives me hope when that happens. And for me, that's a reminder of even just what it means to make the work that I'm making. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, so many beautiful things have been said. And, just lastly with June's just saying, us being in this room, I think every micro moment, we're all making choices, and we're in those moments constructing our reality and making choices about the world we want to live in. Of course, the big picture and what we're fed as data is mostly negative. But there are infinite voices and experiences happening simultaneously, and human experiences and living experiences and planet experiences. And, it's all the blink of an eye, this very short life, this gift that we have in this moment. And I already know, when that moment will come, what will I value? I will value those relationships and those people who trusted me with their love and their friendship. That's what's going to matter the most. So I just try to, remember that in all the ups and downs of life as the guiding principle.
Thank you, everyone. That was great. I love that we're kind of, well, I don't know if we're ending, but maybe we are, but we're probably ending on a high note here. Or, what sparks the joy, what brings us together. So I thank you all for those great questions. I think what we can do now is continue on any conversations that are still kind of lingering in your mind. We can go on over to the gallery and enjoy the work, and the artists will be present. We can chat amongst ourselves and ask more questions and enjoy each other's company. So thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.